Um,
I have muted now.
okay, I was thinking, I thought I muted already. I was gonna panic a little bit, but we're good. And we are live. We are almost professional at this, but not really. Welcome everyone. I will cough occasionally, but don't fret. I will cover up. And the microphone can't transmit germs anyways. Katie, let's start with what we are drinking, since that is a good place to start. And then if you also want to do a little bit of like the context setting of who we are and what we're about to do, that'd be great.
Oh, okay. So I'm Katie, we're our 114. This is the show and tell version of our audio podcast, which comes out every other week. It will be out this Wednesday. Sarah and I are big nerds and also knit and drink a lot of tea. So I am currently drinking David's chai, which I love. It's got the whole star anise in there and big cardamom pods, and it's really a rich spice. And it is from David's Tea. They don't sponsor us. We think they should.
What
about you? What are you drinking?
I am drinking Red Rose with a teeny little bit of hazelnut coffee syrup, which I love. It's amazing how much creamier and smoother it is when you add the coffee syrup. Like it's a teaspoon or a teaspoon and a half I add, because I'm still doing like my regular sweetening. So I'm just adding just a little bit for flavor, and it just changes the texture so much.
Yeah, I know when I worked in a coffee shop, very quickly learned that just adding a little bit of vanilla to something just drastically changes how creamy it really seems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, welcome to our May. It really is a synopsis of April more than anything. And I see people are in the chat. If you are here and live, we love it if you introduce yourselves and where you're from. We've got Canada, the US, and Germany. So herzlich willkommen alle. We welcome all of you. And we are going to start with some things we've finished since the last time we did this. I have managed to remember to bring all of them, I think. I need to maybe I need to start a list or something, but that just would take the fun out of this a little bit. English breakfast tea, always a fan of that epiphany.
Yeah. So we should also say we're in Manitoba, Canada. We live in different cities, but that's where we're coming to you from, where it is finally nice out. We've had the longest, most protracted winter, it feels like. And yesterday was the first day that I woke up and put on like a jean skirt and a tank top and a sweater and sandals without just like, that's just what I put on. And then I checked the weather to make sure that I made a good choice.
Yeah, it's been very swingy. Even when it was warm, it was windy. So I was often like, I think I still need a jacket, or, but yesterday, no, I still needed a sweatshirt yesterday because the wind went away.
The wind was super intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with finished objects, and I'm going to start because I finished a little more than Katie. Katie, you said you have one, so I have four to talk about. So I'll do two, then you go.
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to start with the Rustic Cabin Socks from Knit Picks Felici, which is like just a really hilariously nostalgic set of oranges and burgundies, but this blue, I think, is what makes it. I think if we didn't have that blue, I think it would be pretty, cream to like, it's okay, but that just, I don't know, to me, it really takes it and stops it from being just like all about the oppressive nostalgia of the colors and the, this was my fridge and this was the wallpaper or the rug or whatever.
But the blue is still the right tone for the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's so on theme, but it doesn't keep it at that. Like for me, when I look at that, I think of the orange chevron Afghan that we had growing up, that I think everybody had, because I saw it recently on a TV show and I was like, oh, okay, everyone just had that pattern book and those colors.
I think that was like a Mary Maxim thing. I think it was a kit that was sold in a catalog, sense. Right? And so I think that's why we all have, there's a couple things we all have, like there's some sweaters that a lot of people have, and I think it's a catalog thing.
Yeah. But yeah, so that blue just kind of takes it from being just that Afghan.
Yeah, yeah, it just pops it a little bit. And so I knit all my socks from the top down. I do a heel flap and then a traditional gusset. And it's just a really simple thing, but this is what fits my feet better than any other heel I've tried or format. So, you know, they take some hours to make, so I'm not really going to fuss around with them too much.
Is this is that heel where you did that thing where you go from the opposite end so you keep the
Oh yeah.
stripes?
Yeah,
I
so
love that
what I
idea.
do, yeah, with self-striping yarn, what I started doing is when I get to the heel, I break the yarn and then I grab from the other end of the ball and I just work the whole heel and the turn in that other end. And then when it's time, I join the yarn about here, pick up and keep going. So these stripes right at the start of the gusset are a little thinner, but it's so close and the pattern doesn't break that it's such an easy way without a contrasting yarn, because not so much for the Felici, although also for that, but I've noticed that a lot of my favorite self-striping dyers don't have a normal base that people use for minis. So I'll talk
Yeah.
about that when I talk about my next socks, that the base is just so different. I don't want to necessarily sub in leftovers from
Yeah.
something else because I don't have any solids in that base.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, are there any questions? But I just answered, are they top down or toe up? Yeah, so I do everything top down. I've got everything memorized. I know, so what I do, for instance, is I will, it doesn't look, oh, for this one I didn't. I was knitting this in the dark, I think, when I did the first one, so I had to make the second one did it, so match it. So I will cast on, starting with a color, like the beginning of a stripe. I will usually do 2 or 3 stripes, depending on how much I'm vibing on the ribbing, or more specifically, not vibing. And then when the color changes, then I switch to stockinette and I knit till I'm roughly the height of my hand. And then I start, or the length of a double pointed needle for most of us, that's about the length. Then I do the funny thing where I change the heel yarn, and then I know, like, for each of us, how long from the back of the heel to the beginning of the toe decreases. And then, so everything up to the heel is done by color. And then from here forward, it's done by row or by inches. So that's kind of how I do it. And then that allows me to get them very much the same up to here. And then this bit would normally be in the toe, like the shoe anyways. And so the match is less important.
Yeah, certainly.
And then I also finished my April gnome. So I did Gnome De Plume because it was the 4th pattern for gnomes that I published. Katie helped me pick the colors, and I really like the advice you gave. We went with light gray so that the texture had a nice contrast for shadows so that you can really see those pop. And I am deliberately vague when I did the pattern about whether these are mushrooms or tulips or buds or flowers, so that people can make up their own stories. And there's sort of a leaf beard and a little leaf topper. And I'm just really, really pleased with this. It is so much taller than the original. So it's
It
a
is
different
very
base,
tall.
different. I mean, this one was originally the tallest gnome that I had. Like when I did this one, it was already like, whoa, that hat never ends. But like, so it's a different yarn base, and I used different needles. I was doing these on flexi flips, which I don't have near me to show, but they are slightly different. I was doing that to minimize laddering, because it's a real problem for most people with DPNs getting laddering when needle transition needs to happen in reverse stockinette. So different base, different set of needles, and like years later, so who knows my stress levels, but also a different level of stuffing. This one is much looser stuffed. I've been noticing that about some of my older gnomes. I wasn't stuffing them as much as I stuff them now. And I wonder if I should back off a little bit. I did pull a lot of stuffing out of this, but it's still sort of a significantly different, like, even just like, I mean, it's almost the same up to the top of the motif, but like, what happened here? Like, did I space out? Did I do the wrong number of rounds? I don't know what happened. The stitches are like significantly bigger.
It's hard to see on the camera, but yeah.
But yeah, so that is the second of my 4. So now it's time for Katie to show something off.
Yeah, well, before I do, somebody said that they had given up on top down because they're too tight at the top. Now, I don't know if you mean tight at the very top, like
The cast
up
on.
here, or just if it's harder to get over your foot. And one thing that I found is I'll find that it's hard to get over my foot at that part. And so I really have a really extended heel to make sure that this fits. So this is a 42-inch slip stitch heel. And then what I do up at 42 row, 42 inch. What I do up here is I use a German twisted cast on, and that gives it a lot of stretch. And I have size 12 women's foot with a high arch, and that works for me. So I understand if you figured out that toe up works for you better than top down, that you want to stick with what works for you, but that's some of how I've played with it.
Yeah, and there are some stretchy cast-ons that might work better for you. Like I do the long tail cast on because I've really figured out exactly as I'm doing it how much to snug a stitch up. Yeah. Because it's the distance between the stitches, not the height of the stitches, that determines how stretchy that cast on is. And so I've just figured out as I tighten the long tail, like just how snug it shouldn't be next to its buddy, and that's how I've done it. For some reason I just decided to start using the German twisted, and it's got a little bit more give to it than even like I'm quite intentional and soft in how I do my long tail. I think about the space and all of what you're talking about, but this is a little bit easier because I don't have to be quite as intentional while casting on, because it's got some of that give built into it. That makes sense.
In terms of FOs, I finished my shortest day shawl. So this is knit out of Barocco Ultra. I will hold it still so that you can see a little bit of the detail.
Can you angle it a little bit, maybe, so that the light catches?
Can't actually see what I'm showing here. Is this better?
No.
Nope. All right, let's try using my body as a background. Nope. Super blah.
Yep. Actually, that is better.
Okay.
Yeah. So just don't move now.
Okay. So this is a ginormous triangular shawl. I really like that it's got this chevron detail here, and then these kind of diamonds off to the sides. I made monstrous tassels by wrapping yarn 50 times around my kobo and then snipping it off. So there's a tassel at each end and the bottom. I don't remember the name of the designer right now, but this is a knitty pattern, so it's free. And Barocco Ultra is a worsted weight, so it, works up really nicely. I used US 7 or 4.5 millimeter needles for this. And it's wonderful. I'm really looking forward to fall and putting it on with a jean jacket.
Yeah, it's a very jean jacket kind of color.
Well, and what was really nice about knitting this is it's really repetitive. I really only had to consult the chart like at the tip. Oh, I'm on the wrong side. I'm mirrored and I'm not thinking I'm mirrored. Kind of at the tip and the end of each of the diamonds. That's really where I needed to consult the chart, and the rest of it just kind of, you just read your knitting and shift things over. So it's super duper easy.
Yeah.
It did use a sewn bind off, which took me, I think it was pretty much like from 1 in the afternoon until 8 or 9 at night with breaks.
I usually skip sewn bind offs, I'll be honest, especially if it's that long, because you're having to have such a long length of yarn that it is passing through stitches so often, like it just wears it down.
I landed up using, like I tied yarn on.
Yeah.
Partway through, and I think that made it a little bit easier. But it just, for me, it just ends like garter, right? Like if you look right now, Sarah, I've got it held up. It just kind of ends in a way that, like, I can't see the bind off in a way that I really quite like. It took a long time. And I don't know that I'll do it for everything, but it was nice to do. Mm-hmm. It also was one where you knit it, you cast on provisional stitches, and then you seam it together. So right up in here, you can't even really tell that there was a provisional cast on. There's a little bit of blarp right there, but no one's going to be looking that close. So it's interesting. Some different construction that I'm used to. Love the big tassels. Love how voluminous it is. Yeah.
Beautiful. Absolutely wonderful.
You said that you've got 4, right?
Yes. So the next 2 are matching, and they are, trust me, 2 different pairs of socks. But I've got his and hers socks from the Mud Punch Favorite Things. She does a club, and so here we are. So you can see that they are in fact different because of the height difference, but I can't believe they even end in the same color. Like, what is up with that?
Yeah.
That's just really spooky. So I made these. So Mud Punch does a Favorite Things. So she takes each month, she picks something, picks an inspiration image for it, and then says, "I'm dyeing this. You're going to get a surprise about what the stripes actually look like." And so this one was a Lord of the Rings themed, but it was like 90% black. And then there were just almost like little tourism posters for Shire, Mordor, Anduin, like a couple of those things. And so I could tell from those colors that I'd like the colors. And so in no way does this say to any human being, this is Lord of the Rings, but that image is what inspired, and I just love that it's this fun and it's this intense. The colorway itself is called "And What About Very Old Friends." I am a little spooked that the socks are so close. I started them in the same place, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I have 2 of the same socks, but you can see how much bigger they are. No, that can't be true, because like you can just see the size difference. And when I look at these other 2, they also end like at almost the same spot. Every time we do laundry now, this is going to be a thing. Oh, Nelly.
You need to tie a knot on the inside of one of them. Like, you need to do something.
I think I'm going to have to. So I did the same thing where the heel was knit with the other end, and so none of the heels are the same. Oh, no.
3 of the heels are the same.
Yeah. No, it's actually, this one starts with red. It's just the heel flap.
Okay.
So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so we haven't worn these yet. I just figured you guys had given me a gift card to Mud Punch over Christmas, and when this popped up, I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to order double. I'm going to simplify my choices and not like go hem and haw and, oh, maybe I should save it for something or whatever. I'm like, I like this inspiration picture. I'm ordering double. And when it arrived, I was like, I'll just do a couple socks. So I did. And now that we have done this, I am at least able to wear the, the Rustic cabin socks, but I will make us wait for our anniversary.
Yeah.
Those ones. Yeah, so that's my 3rd pair of socks for myself this year, and I think this might be my 3rd or 4th pair for Reiner this year, which is good because we've been throwing socks out again. We just wear through them. We just wear the bottom till it's mesh, and then it's not warm or a sock. So I don't really darn our socks because we don't really get holes. We just get like massive wispy areas under the ball of our foot for the most part. Like under the toe. Not the toe, but like just that spot where you walk and you turn. I think that's
this part.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
So it just makes this big gapey meshy bit. So I don't darn our socks. I do what is jokingly called "oh darning," where I walk them over to the garbage and say "oh darn" and throw them in.
Yep.
So those are all 4 of mine. Probably the same number of stitches as in yours.
Yeah. Possibly, yeah. Although that was worsted, so no, yeah, probably. That was big. Yeah.
So I have 4 works in progress.
I have technically 4, although I don't think I've actually done anything on one of them since the last time we did one of these.
All right, well, why don't you start and we'll just go back and forth.
Okay. So I'll start with the one that I haven't done anything with. So this is the Not So Mysterious Edgeways Knit Along. With Kim Indigo Dragonfly. It is an in pieces cardigan. So this is the right front. Clearly, I still have left all of these on. I'm not sure why. I can reclaim them now that I've knit both sides. And what I like about this cardigan is it has this rogue stripe here, which will carry across this shoulder, and it carries across the back. Let me just grab it. So, you know, oh no, this is the opposite one. So this one does it opposite, but the yellow is still in the same spot. And then with the other front, it's gonna be hard to hold all of this at the same time. The stripe is actually purple instead of yellow. So there's a little bit of asymmetry in the color. Indigo Dragonfly loves her asymmetry, whether it's in terms of the way that it's cut or in the color. This one is just in the color. I'm not a big fan of asymmetrical cuts as much. But yeah, so I am stalled out because I need to measure my row gauge, block it, measure my row gauge again, and then do math for the sleeves because I want my sleeves to be longer than she's written it for. And because it's knit from the bottom up and in pieces, I need to make sure that the stripes line up at the top of the arm. So I need to do some math, and Kim's offered to help me out. So
would it not be easier just to knit it top down and reverse where there's a decrease, make it an increase, etc.? Because then you get everything the way you want. And then you could even theoretically sew it on. Try it on. Like you couldn't sew it completely, but you could set it in here, right? Because you set it in flat, and then you could try it on and see how long you want it. Just a thought, if you wanted to stop thinking you have to do 37 steps before you're able to get back to it.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Because it should say like bind off that you'll have this many stitches left, that'd be what you cast on, and then you just rewrite everything.
Barb agrees with you. Yeah, let me think about that. That's an idea that just hadn't occurred to me yet. Like sometimes get very linear in my thinking. So yeah, and yes, Rebecca, the stripes were partly what drew me to this. I love how big these are with the little one in between. This yarn is just lovely as well. It's the ROU Sport, ROUS, for fans of Princess Bride. And the gray and the purple are ones that are regularly in their store. So this is Patina Fay, and this one is Crouching Oscar Hidden Fluffy.
Snuffy?
Snuffy. Hidden Snuffleupagus, yeah. And then this one, the yellow is one that they dyed for me, which is an option with some of their kits. You can pick Surprise Me. You send them an inspiration picture. This one is called Goldilocks on a Bagel, I think. Details are always on my blog posts.
And there will be links below. There will be a list below of what we talk about with a link to our podcast page. And then basically, if you just go, I'll link to the most recent podcast. Most of these things that we talk about there should be linked in more detail, but it just makes doing show notes easier for us because YouTube doesn't allow easy porting of links. It's not like a copy and paste. It would be a copy and then like none of the links will just transfer.
They don't hyperlink. You'd have to, yeah. Rebecca, I agree. Like a conservative, but with a pop of color like this, and with the way that it's constructed, I know that I'll be able to wear this into the office on a day where, you know, I know that I can be a little bit more colorful because it's got the set-in sleeves. It's got a nice kind of floppy but robust collar, I guess I want to say. And
floppy. I would say
not gonna be floppy.
Cozy. I would say cozy.
Yes, that's a better way to put it. Yeah, so it's going to be really quite nice, and because it's got, you know, there's lots of shaping within it. You can kind of see a bit of the line here. There's some bust shaping and some waist shaping in this, so it will fit really well. So that'll be great.
I'm going to start with something that inspired the title of our next audio podcast, where I was sort of joking, like, we're recording earlier than we usually do. So do I lie and pretend we actually recorded on Monday and I actually got to the sleeve of my Alaska sweater, or do I tell the truth, which is what we did. And
no, we didn't go with that. We didn't go with that title. Oh,
no,
yes, we went with related. Yep.
Yes, it's related. So what I have to show you is, so the Alaska sweater is a top-down raglan and is also knit in tweed. And then it's a DK sweater, and then you get this amazing color work for the bottom of the body. And I talked extensively recently about how like this spooked me for the longest time, this long gap, because when I catch floats, they almost always come through a little bit, especially because I like high contrast, light and dark. And then the dark often pops forward. Of course, with the tweed, it wouldn't have mattered, but I still, someone at that point, I think it was Aro from Aro Knits and Plurals, was talking about the ladder back jacquard technique. So it is a thing where you actually secure it using a funky little thing that is super easy and should not intimidate you, just because it has this big like ladder back jacquard. That's crazy, right? That sounds like something I don't know how to do. A lumberjack? I'm not a lumberjack. You know, like
very official name. It's a very like, yeah.
So I have finished the first sleeve.
Yay! Oh, that's so exciting.
So it's cute, a little bit of trees, and I have picked up and worked a little bit for the second sleeve. I like when I do top-down sweaters, I always try to reserve a portion of the yoke yarn to be a transition when you then go and pick up the sleeves. However, when I was knitting the first sleeve, I got a little
excited,
distracted, and I only have enough for maybe well, let's say 5 rounds total of this transition yarn. I can't see any difference in any of the dye lot. Like it looks so much the same. I don't think there's a problem. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 2. I started with this one, and then rather than like often I'll start with this one and eventually start transitioning. This time I started with this one, did maybe one time I did one stripe, once like one round, but now I'm doing 2 rounds of this one. And I'll just do it because like I said, I really can't tell that the sleeve yarn is a different yarn than the other. And I think it's really cool.
That's a Knit Picks, right?
No, this is Farmer's Daughter.
Okay.
Knit Picks has a tweed, but it has alpaca in it. And I can't do alpaca. They've just recently brought out a tweed version of their Bravo yarn. They're acrylic though, which is really exciting for people who can't wear wool. So that is wonderful.
One of my favorite sweaters, or one of the sweaters that I've knit that I wear the most, is made out of Knit Picks Brava.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the ones with the big collars, right?
Yeah, down east. Big collar and then an offset set of cables.
Yeah. So this one does a slightly different neck than most people do nowadays when they do a top-down sweater. But this is the first time I ever did my own top-down sweater. This is the way I learned to do it from Barbara. You know, the famous Barbara in knitting. She does all the stitch dictionaries. Barbara Walker. So what you do is you cast on enough stitches to go to here. So like from my one finger around and to this finger, and then you work flat back and forth, and you increase at the edge, increase, cast on over the end, and then you join in the round. So there's no short row shaping. You're just working flat for a little bit and getting this nice little cutout. So it always looks different than another kind of method of doing a crew neck kind of thing, top down with the short row shaping. And like I said, this is the way I learned how to do it. And when I started knitting other people's sweaters, I was like, what are we doing? Like, you can't just start here. You're gonna choke. But I really like this method of going top down. It suits my brain better than the short rows, I'll be honest. But it's also what I did first, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So.
I think that's why I like doing top-down socks as well, as that's what you taught me to do. And so it's just
But
easier.
also it fits our feet, right? Like you
I've
and I
done one
share
pair
feet,
of,
so
yeah, I've done one pair of toe up, and I could wear them for a short time, but with the weight that I've gained over COVID and age and my feet changing, I guess I can't actually get them on over my heel anymore. Or if I can, it's like,
yeah,
oh, not quite.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what's
It's
next?
too bad because they're gorgeous. I am going to show a pair of socks after I make a stitch. So these are, I've got the two pairs of socks that I'm working on right now are both from Fireweed Fiber Company. It's a yarn dyer local to me here in Winnipeg. So I have 6 months now of her Star Trek in themed club. So this is Celestial Temple yarn. This first round I just bought with one of the two potential minis. So this has this really, not normally me, this is quite highlighter pink in person. It's blowing out a bit here. But one of the things that I really love about this is just how it's not focusing, but all of these different colors in here, like there's pinks and purple and yellow and gold and a few different shades of blue and orange and just really wonderful. So this is the second sock. Yes, this is the second sock. The first one is still inside out from when I finished weaving in the ends. But so for this pair, I'm just doing the heel and the toe in contrast. So yeah, this one I'm just finished the gusset increases earlier this morning. So as Sarah and I like to call it, I am on downhill knitting now. I just knit the leg until, for me, it's the foot. For me, it's 9 inches or so from the edge of here to the toe. And then I do a slightly different toe than you do. I do a decrease round every other round until I'm done. Whereas you do a bit of you step it up and start doing decreases every round, I think.
Yeah, when I'm at half the stitches. So if I'm on 32 per half, when I get to 16, I start doing decreases every round just to round the toe a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't have very pointy feet.
Yeah. And for me, it's just, this is the way my brain is memorized, the way that my socks work, right?
And you also know to start your decreases based on that decrease rate. Right?
Exactly.
If you change the decrease rate, you'd have to change that a little bit. So
yeah. Yeah. So this one is, now that I'm working in the office more and I have a new job, I am not knitting while working at all. So I've really ground down on how quickly I'm knitting the socks, but they are still great for things like this, or, sometimes we do family Zooms and it's nice to have something to just kind of work on. Or if I'm watching some TV that needs me to watch the screen a lot more, like we were talking yesterday when we recorded the podcast that will come out on Wednesday, we were talking a little bit about Moon Knight, and that's one where you have to watch the screen. Yeah. And so having a sock was just perfect for that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Oh.
Yeah. What about you?
Today. I am going to show a pair of socks as well. I'm going to show what I'm calling Christmas redo. So I love the ritual of doing the Cozy Knitter here in Canada. She's in Alberta, does a 24 stripe repeat, and you order it in like July. So if you are interested in this concept, you have to get on her mailing list, because you will never ever remember to be thinking about ordering your Christmas yarn in July, but that's what you do. And it's 24 stripes, and they're done in 50-gram balls so that you can knit one stripe per sock per day, and then at the end of the month you will have a whole sock. And I was able to talk to her the first year I did it, and she's like, she had very similar size feet to me, and she showed me, I think I wrote down how many stripes she did before starting her heel. So that, because I really wanted to get all the stripes in, right? Like that's the thing, you don't want to like cut it short and be like, well, I have 20 stripes on my 24 stripe sock.
Yeah.
But she actually dyes 48 stripes per sock, like per 50-gram ball. So you basically possibly have 2 socks out of this. I do, because I was so close. So to make this, so I have then 3 years worth of almost a whole sock left. And so I have been, I want to knit from every box of yarn that I have sort of like, I have my yarn by weight, but I also have enough Christmas yarn that I decided that I got like a little Tupperware thingy. And I've got just my holiday yarns in there. And I wanted to knit something out of that box just to feel like I'm making some progress on my yearly goal. So this is the first one.
Oh, that green is perfect.
The green is, I've got a whole 100 grams from Leading Men Fiber Arts. It's their Green Gables colorway. And so this pair, I will have both the cuff, the heel, and the toe done, or both, all of those points done in the green. Whereas the other one, I think I only did a heel. I think the toe and the cuff were both in the stripe. So this is the first one. I'm on the second one. And while I was visiting mom yesterday, I actually went past the point where I was supposed to start the heel and had to take out 2 stripes. So that was part of my day yesterday, was undoing some of my knitting. But I've started the heel flap. I'm like 3 rounds in, but I like to always have at least one sock where it's 100% stockinette in the round knitting. So I'm not working on it right now. I'm actually working on getting another pair of socks to that like safe spot.
Yeah, you leapfrog your socks.
I do, partly because I don't like to not knit. If I have the chance to knit, I want to be knitting, and even in the dark or in the car when I can't look, I want to be able to knit. And so if I always have something that's right at that point where I can knit without looking, then I feel like reassured that life can happen.
Yeah.
So that is my second work in progress.
My next one is another sock, also from the Fireweed Fiber Company Star Trek club. This is the Empress sock. So I am over here on the foot. I love the red in this. And it's interesting. So we've commented a few times on how this speckle is striped. And we've wondered if this was intentional. And when I went earlier this week to pick up the next 3 months, because she's releasing it in 3-month installments, she looked really confused when I asked her about whether or not the stripe was intentional. And she said, no. So when we're done this recording, now that it's out, I'm gonna remember to take a picture and send it to her and say, this is what I'm talking about. So again, German twisted cast on, I do about 20 rows, just because that feels long enough. And nice long leg, same kind of length. This is the first sock, and I am very close to needing to start the toe. So I'm at the point with this one where I need to just knit it when I'm mindful enough to stop and measure as I go, instead of just knit along. So that's this one.
All of those in the same base, I wonder if you couldn't just count the number of rounds on one of the socks and just knit every single pair of those socks that many rounds from the heel.
I could, except for when I cast on one of these 2 pairs, I couldn't find, I've got a few of these 9-inch circular needles in different sizes, and I couldn't find the exact same size. So there's a 0.25 millimeter size difference between these 2 socks. But you're right, the one that I think I like the fit of better, I'll just knit the rest of them in that one, and then I don't, exactly.
You don't even need the measuring tape. You can just count to have like a note somewhere.
Yeah. I'm pretty consistent in putting the number of rows there are into my blog for each sock, because I'm also a little bit like sometimes it's this many stitches and sometimes it's this many stitches. So
yeah,
for me,
I think it's because it's partly like our literal tension, like whether we're relaxed or not, but it's so much is the base.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but you're right. These are all going to be in the same base. So that's a really good point. So that's my 2 socks. What else are you working on?
I'm going to talk about another sweater. Yeah. So I cast on another cozy classic Raglan.
This is number 3, right?
Third. And I decided that since it was going to be the third, I was going to change it up a little bit. And so I did some thinking. I did lots of thinking, and I'm going to put a cable in it. And I did a bunch of research about the cable and all this stuff. And eventually I just decided I wanted a cable that I could read the cable and not have to worry about thinking and looking at a pattern. So I'm using Lichen and Lace in a single ply. This is their beetroot color. Amazing.
So gorgeous.
And then I have this color of Cashmere Garzato. This is a Lana Grossa yarn that uses cashmere, cotton, and merino to get the fluffy lace weight kind of look that a lot of silk mohairs have. It is not as fluffy, and the core yarn is a bit thicker, I think, and nowhere near as shiny because it doesn't have the silk. So it's not a perfect match. However, we are allergic to both mohair and alpaca. We can't wear the other fluffy options. So I was so excited to discover this. I knit my second Cozy Classic Raglan with that yarn plus another yarn held together, and I just love it. It feels so cozy. And what I like about that sweater is it's basically just a really posh sweatshirt, the way it's designed.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's got that I'm just going to pull on a sweatshirt feeling, but it looks so much better than that. So this is knit using the traditional way, which is to do all the cast on and then short row shaping, which was a little interesting to try to figure out, because I did want to put the cable, the cable in the center. Where am I here? And I know it's not going to be very visible because I haven't knit that much. So just let me see what I can pull apart here to make it something you can see a little bit. So I'm doing 3 cables.
Just a basic twist.
Yeah, and I've got them set so that the one in the center is sort of like, so if I'm doing every 12 rows for the cable twist, I'm actually doing every 6, because the one in the middle does it 6, and then the 2 outside ones do it 12, so that they're just a little bit offset. So they look a little like more snuggled together as opposed to 3 rope cables.
Yeah, I like that.
So it's interesting to see sort of like which yarn gets to be dominant, but the brightness of the fuzz is definitely sort of winning the color race. But there is something about the depth that this beetroot adds that I'm really enjoying. And I'm really looking forward to being able to say, like, I'm just in a nothing fancy kind of mood, but I want to be bright and colorful, and this is what I'm going to be able to pull out. Like, oh yeah, that's taking the sweatshirt game up a level. But I have hardly worked on this because, you know, like, there's only so much time in the day, and that makes me sad. I wish this was done and the Alaska sweater.
I am so excited about both of your sweaters right now.
Yeah. And we are going to be doing a sweater knit along as well. So far, our sweaters have just been unofficial, and that's just not acceptable. So we'll be kicking off a sweater cal soon, and we need to talk about when we're actually scheduling it. But just in case you guys don't, who watch this, don't listen to the audio podcast, you might want to keep an eye on my the Ravelry group, or probably I'll also announce it on Instagram. But we'll do some kind of a sweater cal. Might be during summer to be ready for fall, or it might be in fall because Katie's not sure about her air conditioning.
Katie's not sure, but yeah, haven't lived through a summer in this place yet. It looks like somebody has the same color of Garzato.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Oh, and of course it's Yulia, who's from Germany, because that's where I got this yarn. I'm sure that it's for sale in North America, but Lana Grossa is just a company that is ubiquitous in Germany. It's like when you walk into a yarn shop, the odds that it will be 90% Lana Grossa are really high. Like, it is, it's the dominant player over there. And it is also some of the best yarn I've ever knit with. The sweaters I've knit with their yarn, not the cashmere, obviously, but other things, like, they have not pilled, not one tiny bit. They have had some of the best, like their Cool Wool 2000. It is a merino that is like plies within plies within plies, and the stitch definition is mind-blowing. The cables and the texture you can do out of that stuff, incredible. And even though it's merino, it doesn't pill because it's just so many plies.
I really need to get my hands on some, because you've been raving about it for over a decade now. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll talk, because I am scheduled to go to Germany.
Oh, that's right. Christmas present planning. So speaking of sweaters, that's my next whip. This is the Longline Cardigan by Joji Locatelli, knit out of Old Maiden Ant yarn. The red has just a bit of stellina in it, which I like. The gray is just nice and plain.
Is it a silver sparkle or a gold sparkle?
It's a silver sparkle.
Okay, because it's looking gold from here. So
no, it's silver. I don't know if you guys can hear Cinnamon over this, but she is. I've locked her in the office. My cat's name is Cinnamon. I've locked her in the office and she won't be disturbing me while we do this. And she has had enough. Anyway, so what I really like about this is a really interesting construction. Again, with the Edgeways cardigan, I'm really into nice big collars right now. This whole section here is collar. And we'll come down the front as the front hem as well. So and it's 1 by 1 rib. It's just going to be beautiful.
It's just like so yeah, you're starting in the back center and you're kind of coming forward with that one.
Yeah. So
big open cardigan thing.
There's a provisional cast on right here. And you knit a bit this way, you knit a bit this way, and then you pick up around and knit out. So we call it a collar tab cast on because it's similar to a garter tab. And then you divide for the front and the back and the other front. You knit straight for a little bit and then you join it for the armpits. So I really like the way that that's done. It didn't feel like normally when I'm knitting top down or anything really, like up here there's just a lot for me. It's just a lot.
Yeah, if you're doing it straight across.
Yeah, and all the way around, like it's just, there's so many stitches and I would be done a 10-row repeat before I even realized it on the front because it was just zip, 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 zip. Then there is short row shaping. You pick up stitches for the sleeves and there's short row shaping here. So my stitches I'm trying to hold this and it's sliding off my arm, sorry. The stripes do get offset a little bit because my row gauge is off from hers. And this was not made to be a striped sweater. This was made to be just knit in one color. But I don't really mind this too much. It matches where it should match for enough, I think. But because my row gauge is different, I'm at the point where I'm starting to make up what I'm doing just a little bit to make it work. But let's see if I can try this on without losing anything. So like with most patterns, you're supposed to knit the body first and then stop to do the sleeves. I decided to do the sleeves so that I can just knit the body as long as I want the body to be. So nope, mirrored on this one. Need to remember that. So here's my sleeve. I think it's looking pretty good for now. It's a little bit big, but I'm going to start my decreases right away and knitting in the round.
Also, just straight up do in one row, do 4 decreases.
Oh, that's a good idea. I've already done one set of decreases, but yeah, I'll try that.
Just grab it, just do a bunch, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and so with this big collar, like it's gonna have to fold over my neck because it's just so luscious and so comfy. Yeah, Julia, Old Maiden Ant is a dyer out of the UK and just has some really wonderful colors. I thought there was one other thing I was going to talk about with this one, but I can't remember right now. So yeah, this is the main thing that I'm knitting right now. But I am itching to get back to the Edgeways sleeves. And what you suggested about working from the top down has just been rolling around in my head. So I'm going to take a look at the pattern this afternoon.
Yeah, and the way I would do it if I was you is I would just try to rewrite the pattern and actually write it out and see if it works and if the instructions make clear when you'd be doing what color. Because that's the main thing, is that if the instructions are just do X for X inches, maintaining color pattern, that's not going to tell you which color to cast on. But if the color pattern is explicitly part of all of that, then it should be really clear what you start with and then what you would reverse. So that'd be what I would be checking, is not just how to write it opposite, because that should be pretty easy, but it's like that, because for you, it's about getting the stripes to match.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it's been so long. It's been probably at least a month since I last touched this. So I don't remember clearly if the pattern says maintain color pattern or if it's specific. So yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah. So my last thing to talk about is another sock. That's what I've been working on today. This is Foliage by Dye for You, who is a local Manitoba dyer, and I adore this color. It is a dye technique that I struggle to discuss. I call it color mirroring because it goes from like sort of one color up and then it repeats itself down. So there are some colors that have sort of two, and then there's one that only has one, right? But it depends on where you do the what's the start and what's the end, what you consider having like a partner and what is the center. So like if the red is the center, then there's one red and there's two of everything else.
Right.
But if the yellow is the center, then there's one yellow. Where am I here? There's one yellow and two of everything else, right? But I like when things go from dark back to light or from light back to dark, like, or whatever.
Yeah.
I just really like this. It's kind of like, to me, it feels like a rounded color scheme that has that mirroring, and I just really dig it.
It flows, like your eye just moves along those colors, those transitions. It keeps the eye moving, right? Whereas self-striping, like striping socks where the colors are all different, it breaks it a little bit more, but and especially because these ones are so similar and so tonal. Yeah. Really quite wonderful. Is that your first one of that pair?
It is, yeah. Cast on kind of emergency wise because we were going to go to a movie and I did not have a knitting where it needed to be.
Yes.
So I had enough warning this time that I could cast on and get the ribbing done while we were having supper.
Nice.
And then run to the theater and start the stockinette. I am doing this I can't find my second 9-inch circ. It's in a bag somewhere. So I started doing most of my socks on 9-inch circs and just doing the heel flap. And sometimes I do like a good inch of the gusset. So like 2 to 3 centimeters of the gusset. I will sometimes also do on the DPNs, but mostly I've switched to doing the 9-inch circs. But because I'm knitting so many gnomes and things at the same time, like things are a bit chaotic around here in terms of what's in a project bag and what I think is in a project bag. Like I will sometimes not look for something because I know what's in there and that's not what's in there. Like, why would I even look in that?
Yeah.
Hello? No, that's not how this works. You have to look in all the project bags. That's how it works.
Yeah. No. Well, so I don't know about you, but I just ran out of tea and I'm out of projects.
Yeah. So that's us done. I hope that everyone has a brilliant month. We will let people know when we decide about how to do a sweater done along. And it will not just be either a cardigan or a sweater, like it's a top. That's really, and we're not going to have prizes for this one. We're not going to like have rules. If you want to knit a baby cardigan and say you're participating, you join. I'm not going to police anything about this knit along.
Nope. Sheer enjoyment and cheerleading is what it's about.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us. Do check the links in the description below for anything you want to know more about, because as I said, I'm going to make a little list of what we talked about, but then for details, you are going to have to go dig through podcast show notes, which are detailed and, like, for instance, link to each project page on Katie's blog. Or if I've got some of my stuff on Ravelry, but some of it I've already posted on Instagram, so then I'll use an Instagram link. And all of that is linked very explicitly in our show notes.